Hi, my name's Leah, and today we are going to be reviewing the film Suspiria.
This is what I was thinking.
Let's do this. So, Suspiria 2018 is a film by Luca Guadagnino, who is a director of Call Me By Your Name. And this film was actually inspired by the 1977 version, Suspiria, by David Argento. Suspiria, in my opinion, is very different from the other films that I've seen from the same director. I really enjoyed it and thought that this film was a great interpretation of the first 1977 version's film. I just thought it was more rich, more explicit in the supernatural aspects, in the socio-political aspects, and more importantly, I thought it was really rich and just great example of costume design. I thought it was very essential to the viewing experience and brings a lot more to the story than just watching it the first time. So I feel like a rundown of Suspiria is needed if you haven't heard of it. The 1977 version is a cult film classic, I would say, in the horror genre, just because of its brilliance and set design and lighting and whatnot. But in the sense, it still follows the same character, Susie Banyan, from the Midwest United States, moving from the States to Germany during the 70s to audition for a dance company. And from there on out, all hell breaks loose, because actually the dance company is a coven. Freaky stuff goes down, dancers die, break their legs, but still perform. She took break a leg very seriously. This film is very equal parts bloody and gory, but beautiful and enticing at the same time. I appreciated how the color red was incorporated into the costume design of this film, because the color grading in the film, well, most of the film, is quite bleak, quite gray, quite sad almost. Meanwhile, in the original version, the color red and the lighting and cinematography in general, it was very out there, in your face. And it's nice to see this director make a different interpretation of how the color red is used. And he uses the color red more as the film gets more intense, as more is revealed, the color pops up more and more often, which I think is fitting. Quite nice. In Suspiria, there are two main scenes that I would like to highlight in specific because they stood out to me the most. The first one is the Volk performance, which is the most anticipated performance that these dancers have been practicing for in the film, and everybody basically wants to get the main part, but of course our girl Susie gets it because she is sort of the protege to Madame Blanc, who is directing it. The performance itself, I think, is done really well. It was executed brilliantly, honestly. So the costumes consist of red bondage rope, actually, according to the costume designer Giulia Pierstani. She bought red bondage rope and practiced some bondage techniques on the actors' bodies to see what would fit well. And she leaves a lot of rope dangling, sort of like blood dripping, which I think is very smart of her. The red here can obviously be symbolic of many things. It can be symbolic of power, sexuality, blood, murder, all these types of things, which fit in well with the film's overall plot and themes in general. Costumes highlighting women's bodies is very prevalent throughout the film. In fact, the costume designer herself did say that in making the prints for a more era accurate 70s type of vibe for the film, she printed a lot of stuff that had archetypes of a woman's body on it. An example is in Madame Blanc's caftan when she's having a dinner with Susie, and she is wearing a black caftan with some print on it, and apparently that was based on a woman's figure. In relation to the point of how the costume design highlights women's bodies, Madame Blanc is a really great example, because you would think for a dancer she would wear more tighter clothes that, you know, accentuate her body outline, but in fact she has a very minimalist style, almost like a uniform of some sort, which I appreciate, because I feel like if you were to look more into Blanc's character, she seems like the type of artist that truly expresses herself through her art and her art only, which means it would be easier just to have a uniform that you would stick by to every day, rather than taking the creative liberties or during the morning to figure out how you want to portray yourself. She portrays herself very much as a strong, very driven and passionate about dance. Her wardrobe, I think, allows for her to have a lot of movement, allows for her to only be perceived through her art and not her body. And I really appreciate that. I think it fits really well with her character. Another scene that I would like to highlight is the last scene, the Black Sabbath act. And in this ritual, it's one of the most important rituals that all the witches have been waiting for. And we can see that the matrons are actually dressed in hair. It's human hair extensions, I believe, and they are lined on the walls as well. And I think this is really interesting because it feels like they are wearing this hair on their bodies to symbolize the sacrifices of the previous victims. And the way that it is constructed onto the body, which the costume designer in the film says that it was draped in a way that it created different motifs to make a more flexible, like cage-like structure on the bodies of the actors. And I think this is really smart of her to do that, since it is quite a scene that confronts the body and confronts human mortality and witch mortality quite explicitly. Blanc in this scene surprised me the most, because she actually wears just a, can I say, really lovely color of red caftan in this scene, which makes her stand out the most, because she is the only one there wearing a very striking color. It felt like she was saving her most extravagant gown for this extremely special event, which would make sense. Susie as well surprised me, and in this scene she's wearing a sheer brown caftan, which again, the looseness sort of can signify how loosened up she's become to all these strange events happening around her. It's more like she's now open and not questioning what's going on anymore, and transparent with herself and her power as a woman, which I think can translate well to the sheerness of the gown, since it does highlight her body. In a sense, it's also empowering too, how she's wearing that and walks into this room of ritual sacrifice and it's just like, hi. But it also gives me the vibe that Susie is sort of trying to channel Madame Blanc's power, since Madame Blanc is really like a shifting figure for Susie and her transformation throughout the film. So I wouldn't be surprised if she would be trying to copy Madame, since she does look up to her quite a lot and she has been very influenced by her. Something else that I think is also really interesting about the film is how the wardrobe of Susie, for example, goes from a very pastoral, pleasant type of vibe where she enters with wearing pinafore dresses and plaid shirts, and then moves on to using more of her friend Sarah's clothes, who dresses more clean, more bourgeois, I guess, using more neutral colors and looking very refined. And it's interesting how you can see her move and change, not only through her actions, but through how she is being presented and perceived by people. In conclusion, I think the designer did a really good job in translating the 70s fashion into more of how the director wanted it to be, the director's style of the film. I really enjoyed the lengths she went to using these prints and keeping the 70s printed fashion in the form of caftans and such, and not just using the, very stereotypical 70s peace and love vibe in the costume design. She really translated it and made it quite high fashion, actually. What I also appreciate about this film is that in horror films, sometimes the wardrobe is lacking, but with horror films like these, specifically I feel on art horror, that the costumes can be so much more creative and you have so much more room to play with the real and unreal and what's an illusion and what isn't. And I think they did exactly that.